Hello and welcome to Every Horror Movie on Netflix, the show where we watch, review, and discuss every horror movie on Netflix. It's a great week. I'm here once again, Chris.
Speak for yourself.
Well, maybe we're not all having a great week, but, back again. Here we got Patrick. Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
He is so high.
I'm great. We got Steven.
Hola, chicas.
And we got a special guest back again.
Why, though?
Did you watch this movie?
Yeah, did you forget?
Oh, are you being Javier?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Ola was said like 20 times in the span of 5 minutes early on in this
True.
film.
Chris should have given us all a hearty hola at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah. Well,
a hearty hola, Chris.
Is Ola shark for high?
You can't talk until I've introduced you.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah, who are
Yeah,
you,
shut the
strange
fuck up.
man?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Back
You're right.
again, our special guest, Gregory Allen,
Hello.
of the architect of the Spoiler Room.
Yeah, and I took a brief look, and I'm not impressed with the shoddy wiring job. I see that you hung a TV. You used like neutral colors down there, and all my hard work is gone. The chains are gone.
We never said we'd get it up to code.
Listen, I guested on your podcast this past week, and you told me you had been too busy renovating your own house. You, in fact, apologized for the neglect that you had shown to
I
the
did, but
spoiler
that
room.
doesn't
So
give
I think
you-
this is all attributable to you.
Do you go and paint over the Mona Lisa? Do you give her modern eyebrows because that's what you think she deserves?
Oh, so you're comparing the spoiler room to the Mona Lisa.
It is my Mona Lisa.
It's a Banksy at best, my friend.
He's a shill. He's a corporate shill, and that's bullshit, and you know it.
Well, speaking of great works of art, what did we watch this week?
Wow, how did you feel about this one, Chris?
47 Meters Down.
With Mandy Moore.
And I'm, again, special thanks to Patrick for deferring his Wheel of Death pick to me.
And boy, am I regretting that.
Yeah, well.
No, thank you. Thank you.
This is one I've been interested in for a long time. And I'm glad I finally got to watch it.
Why have you been, what piqued your interest?
Yeah, what is it about a movie that involves sharks and scuba diving that could possibly interest you, Chris?
Well, I'm curious about sharks, and I am a semi-avid scuba diver, and so the premise of the movie seemed completely ridiculous to me, but I was like, I want to see how they handle it. And then some divers that I know went and saw it in the theater, and they didn't really have good things to say about it, but I was still curious, and so... I was interested mostly from a scuba diving perspective. There aren't enough scuba diving movies.
So I've actually only recently realized you have a thing with sharks. And I guess this is starting to kind of piece together in my mind now that I remember that you had shark facts back when we watched Three-Headed Shark Attack. What is it about sharks?
I don't necessarily have a huge fascination with sharks.
No.
I just like them, and I'm worried about them because they are threatened, and we have movies like 47 Meters Down that make them, again, look like movie monsters when, in fact, humans kill, tens of thousands of sharks every minute or hour in the world.
Yeah, I mean, what is it about sharks? Why are people so fucking scared of sharks? I mean, is it just Jaws? Did Jaws just turn everybody against sharks?
I mean, it's probably a combination of things because they're in a thing that we already don't understand as much of as we'd like, especially laymen, the ocean, and then they're just giant bitey monsters that are ready to eat your feet at any given second. Well, that's what people think anyway, but that's because they're scary looking. They're big, they're scary. Big ones are big anyway.
We've all had the experience of being out in the water and you can't see under the surface. And
one of my biggest fears, actually.
It's always
Dark
unsettling.
Water. Yeah.
Oh,
the movie Dark Water?
Not the movie Dark Water.
that's
Wait, are
one
we
of
talking
my
about the
biggest
Japanese
fears.
movie or the
Either
other
one, they're both scary.
Or
Okay.
Deepwater Horizon. I texted...
Oh, wait, what?
There's a Mark Wahlberg movie about the Deepwater Horizon oil rig disaster called Deepwater Horizon.
Oh, I thought you were mixing up Deep Blue Sea and
No.
Event Horizon. Okay.
Speaking of killing sharks.
No.
Or Deep Rising, I meant.
I texted Chris during this movie, the ocean is scary as shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just water, that's one of my top fears, is just deep water, being stuck in it, drowning, whatever, scares the fuck out of me. Fuck sharks. I mean,
They're
sure,
just accoutrement on the big scary cake
they're
that is
just,
the ocean.
Yeah, they're just sprinkles on top. They're just the cherry on top of that cake.
Multi-road toothed sprinkles.
Yeah.
Let me say this. There are many horrible ways to die scuba diving that I think about often. Shark attack, not on the list.
Well, yeah, because you don't dive where there are sharks.
All divers
I
come
have.
equipped with spear
you
guns
have.
and a
That's
sidearm,
true.
though, right? You guys always have a spear gun and a sidearm. That's my understanding of scuba
Well,
diving.
you know, when you start off scuba diving, you think you're going to have like a dive knife for sharks, and then you go to the store and you're like, yeah, you know, I might want to get a knife someday, and everyone just looks at you like you're a fucking idiot.
You're not speaking from personal experience now, are you?
Of course not.
I was really shocked that this movie didn't, like, I actually backed up. I was like, wait, this didn't begin with an opening text crawl with some kind of PSA about, either how many sharks kill humans or
Every
how many
year.
humans kill sharks every year.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't have a leg to stand on, so to speak. I mean,
Wouldn't have a fin to swim on.
yeah. Because shark, I mean, well the
Some
thing,
conservation facts would have been nice.
the thing about shark attacks, though,
But that's what the internet's for.
That's what Chris is for.
the thing that worries me is now, and I think this is substantiated by science, but I could be pulling it out of my ass. Now with the threats,
I just saw him pull it out of his ass, guys.
It was gross.
I've got a
please
privileged
pull your
viewpoint
pants
over here.
back up. Jesus.
like traditionally shark attacks have been nothing to worry about at all, but now because of the shape of the ocean and the shape of the climate, you're seeing sharks that are desperate kind of going into areas they don't traditionally go to, attacking things they don't usually attack. So
What shape is the ocean?
The same shape as its
Geometrically.
container.
you know the condition of
I
the
know,
ocean
I'm just
very
teasing.
poor.
I'm sorry. I couldn't.
The same shape as its container.
Oh,
Kind of like a gas.
Hey.
but, you know,
perfect
heavier.
answer.
Hey, so
Well
what the fuck
done.
is this movie about?
So
It's
very
about two Insta girls who
Dude,
Come on.
okay, this is my like one and only sort of like hot take prepackaged line about this movie is the alternate title is "Do It for Instagram." Mm-hmm. Like that's basically the
they
motivation.
just want to have fun.
Yeah,
But you know what? That's a fine.
so-
that's a fine motivation because people are motivated by that all the time in
It's
real life.
worse than that, though. Like if you're doing it for yourself, for Instagram, that's one thing. But like one of the main talking points leading up to her finally being coaxed into going on this boat was she just got dumped.
But I think that's some of the point of Instagram is
Hi,
that it's
Stuart.
all about like making everyone
feel
else
like
jealous
it's-
of
think
how
of the-
cool
think
your
of the
life
pictures
is.
you'll have.
This is
Yeah.
it's sadder in a way. Well, it's
Yeah.
sadder in that we're still making movies where a man is the motivation for this to happen at all.
Oh, I know.
But like, it's not even the same superficial as just taking Instagram photos of the beautiful places you go.
So for context,
Wait,
Because we're going to get deep in the weeds on
if
this
we're
issue, I
talking
can
about
tell.
the gender politics, I noted while I was watching the movie that it's bizarre how the whole movie is about two women talking to each other in a cage, and it almost doesn't pass the Bechdel
I
test.
know. I almost texted you that while I was watching.
Does it?
Yes, by the skin of its teeth.
How? I mean,
By the skin of its many, many rows of teeth.
They have like one conversation that's not related to Stewart or the dive crew, but that's it.
it's atrocious.
all right. So we should explain what the fuck's going on and who Stewart is. So
Very
Mandy
simple,
Moore,
very simple premise
Mandy
here.
Moore and her sister are on vacation in Mexico. Mandy Moore has just recently been broken up with. She is still very distraught about it. Her sister's like the cool one who goes on adventures all the time and is an influencer. Mandy Moore is kind of like the reserved
So
sister.
real quick, this vacation, I think I got the vibe that it was supposed to be Mandy Moore's character and Stuart. So what's her character's name? Lisa,
Lisa
I think?
and Kate.
Lisa and Kate. But I think it was supposed to be Lisa and Stuart. And
Oh,
she told Kate,
maybe.
Stuart has to work. Will you come on this vacation so I don't have to go alone?
Oh shit! Yeah. Okay.
I thought he was going to be a third the whole time, but it's neither here nor there.
Right.
Very simple premise: girls on a beach resort in Mexico.
They meet a couple
But the
local
excuse
dudes.
to get them there is just, it pissed me off.
Sure.
They meet a couple local dudes who are like, we should go cage diving, see some sharks, get in a big cage and some scuba
Well, they
gear.
have a
and see
long
some
night drinking. There's a
sharks.
lot of drinking going on. My favorite, like before they even get there, my favorite thing is like everything these girls say is like, "This is amazing!" Like they say "amazing" like 5,000 times. And then I remember her saying like it's like broad daylight, and she's
Yes.
like, "I wish this night would last forever."
Yeah, she says, this is the best night ever.
Who's she trying to
know
convince? Let's be real. Lisa was not having a good trip.
Sorry, you guys have never had a great night.
Okay, Chris,
I've
when
had
you
some
have
great
a great
nights and
night,
some
do you
great
dance
mornings.
around as the sun rises, yelling, "This is the best
Maybe.
night ever."
Going back into this, it drove me nuts when I was watching the movie too. Like Lisa was convinced to go out to make Stuart jealous.
Yeah.
And it was that was the entire motivation behind
Yes.
going out and
It's
meeting these
sickening.
guys, and then agreeing to go on this boat was just to make Stuart jealous. And it
And to have pictures
it
for
was
Instagram.
obnoxious. It didn't need to go that way.
listen. No. There's two girls. I mean, listen. The basic conceit of the movie, because we haven't said, and you probably know already if you're listening, these two women are going to get stuck in a shark cage dive. The cage is going
You'll
to
never
plummet
guess how far it goes
to
down.
47 meters of depth, and they're going to be stuck
I
there
was thinking maybe like 46 meters.
46 and a half, maybe.
with deadly sharks around them, and that's the dilemma of the
Should
movie.
we have saved the depth for the spoiler room?
Anyway, so they have this opportunity to go on the cage dive. The one girl, I think she was Kate, Claire,
The
what's her
blonde one?
face? Yes.
Yeah, Kate.
She is all for adventure, and I think the let's make Stuart jealous angle was just her way of manipulating her timid sister into going on this dive that she was afraid of.
I think
but
so
Lisa
because
is the ostensible protagonist of this movie, and she would not have done this if she had not been basically guilted into it to try and make Stuart jealous. Like that is,
Sure.
if not for Stuart and that breakup, the events of this movie would not happen.
Sure.
That is the inciting
So it's
incident.
Stuart's fault.
There was so much.
Basically.
There was so much Stewart stuff at the beginning of this movie that I actually wrote down in my notes. I was like, "Is there going to be a Stewart conspiracy angle here? Like, is
wait, is Stuart the shark?
is Stewart involved in the dive operation?"
There were a lot of points in this movie where I was like, "Ooh, this is gonna happen," and then it didn't. I was like, "Well, that's stupid. Why didn't they take advantage of this opportunity?"
There's so many missed opportunities.
I mean, okay, so I've been very negative so far already, and I'm going to invoke the spirit of Allison with an I and talk about a lot of positive things, because there are a lot of things I did enjoy about this movie.
Great CGI.
I loved the opening of this movie. I thought that was a great little fake out. You see her floating in a pool float, and you're kind of the camera is coming up from the bottom of a pool, and you get the idea that you're looking at someone floating on a boat or who knows what. She spills a glass of wine or something into the water, and it looks like blood. It's very cute.
I
It's
love
a cute
that
opening.
I learned in like 7th grade. This was my first exposure to the idea of like symbolism in literature or film. Talked about A Tale of Two Cities and how someone like spills a cask of red wine at the beginning of A Tale of Two Cities, and it foreshadows blood running. It's when someone spills wine in a movie or a book, you know someone's going to die.
I thought it was cheesy and like kind of laughable, except it was gorgeously shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, great, it's a shark movie. We know people are going to get killed by sharks, and like we think like Jaws is coming up from the depths, and no, it's a wine glass. But it looked cool. I mean, this movie was really well photographed.
Yes. Yeah.
I'll give it that.
It was cute. It was a cute opening.
I like
That's
that.
just what I like. I like my horror cute.
I like the opening, but never in that opening sequence did I think they were in the ocean. I just automatically, to me, it read like a pool. It felt like a pool from that opening shot until we finally reveal that they're in a pool. I was like, wow, this is going to be really bad if all these open ocean shots look like this. But it wasn't an open ocean shot, so...
I mean, so what I liked about the movie is I thought it did a good job of being relatively tense when they're in the cage and they're 47 meters down. If you can put away all the shit I know about why this is completely inaccurate from a diving perspective, I thought it was a tense movie. And there's nothing worse than being underwater and your air is ticking down and you can't get to the surface.
Absolutely. I really disliked the character setup kind of stuff, as we've already discussed. I thought the whole thing with the boyfriend and that sort of being the motivating factor for them doing this was fucking shitty. But my heart rate increased the minute they got locked into that cage. I was just like, fuck no. I just had a really visceral reaction to it. And a lot of the stuff that's underwater is pretty effective and pretty scary and pretty tense. And I'll give it a lot of credit for that.
So for me, I'm not sure where the intentional stress came from versus me being angry about what they were doing, but they definitely merged, and I agree. I felt angry and tense throughout this movie. And I don't know where their intentions ended and my perception began.
Gregory,
That was my biggest issue
That's
with it.
funny.
You're such a dad. you get so pissed off when people do irresponsible things in movies. You get really enraged when people are making just shitty decisions.
Yeah, I don't know that it's just the dad thing. It's just like that didn't seem like an honest choice.
Yeah.
And if it's not going to be honest, don't put it in your movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, honesty reads more naturally than just, this will be a great scene.
You mean it didn't seem like an honest choice in the sense of her doing it for Instagram? Basically, didn't seem like an honest choice.
Well, that was I won't say, and we talked about that a little bit in the last, when you were over the house, where sometimes people get boy crazy and do stupid things, and especially right after a breakup, you do stupid things. It just seems like in this day and age, to make a movie that's motivated by that is a bad choice.
For context, we talked about that in the context of the movie Thor.
Yes,
and Natalie
Thor,
Portman's
and Natalie
role
Portman's
in it.
character,
Yeah,
being
very
boy
relevant.
crazy.
So to what extent were you guys convinced by the problem that they're stuck underwater and that they can't just go to the surface?
I was not convinced.
Me either.
I was like, I actually looked it up because I was like, how long is 47 meters? It's the length. It's 2 lengths of a standard like lap pool. And I'm a terrible swimmer, but I was like, if my life
That's
depended
it?
on, I was like, if my life depended on it, I could swim 2 laps to survive. I wasn't quite buying the bends thing because they kept saying, don't swim to the surface.
Or you're
Yeah,
going to encounter
so-
You're gonna get the
a
bends.
terrifying Radiohead album. I want to say I also felt it was effective at creating tension, even if I felt the characters are making stupid decisions. But like Greg and like the conversation we had last night, I have trouble parsing out whether or not I'm just stressed out because I want it to be over, or if I'm actually feeling tense because of I'm like feeling what the characters are feeling in the moment. Either way, I had a pretty good time with it.
I felt disconnected for the most part in the movie, so I don't know. Yeah, so
I didn't care about the characters, but I didn't know if it was like me putting myself in that situation, even as thin as the characters were, just like, all right, I'll play your little game movie, or if it was that like I just felt there wasn't enough to hang my hat on, so I'm just focusing on the stupid decisions. But my heart rate increased.
Yeah.
Physiologically, this movie worked however it chose to go about it.
I mean, I will say, I don't
Put that on the back of the DVD, you
I don't-
fucking animal.
I don't think I was bored at any point, and this hour and a half did fly by for me.
Well,
It's
it was so-
there's a lot of incident, and it's interesting.
Chris told me it was a very easy to watch movie when he asked me to come on the show, and I couldn't agree with that statement more. It was absolutely an easy movie to watch.
so brisk, like
It
just
just-
goes by
and you're
so
done.
quick.
It's under 90 minutes, which is always a plus.
89, baby.
Yeah.
So I
sweet
think-
spot.
So I think we should establish just a tad more context before we get into dive science. So they're dropping the cage. The boys who they've met in Mexico go down first. That goes fine. The girls get in. They start to be lowered down, and the winch on the boat breaks, and they drop 47 meters to the bottom of the water.
They were supposed to go down 5, and they
Yeah.
ended
Right.
up going down 47.
Which they
Is
were
it-
supposed to go down 3 meters, which is 16 feet.
I thought he said. Yeah, I think
He
he
said 5 multiple times.
Yeah, I'm 99% sure it was 5.
For some
but that
reason, I
doesn't
wrote down 3 meters,
All
and
right.
16 feet.
Three
but, what,
looks
3,
a lot
5,
like
whatever.
5, yeah.
Also, do we know like how common this is in the first place? Like, is this like a thing people do?
Cage diving
Yeah.
with sharks? Absolutely, yeah.
Is it
but
illegal to chum the water?
I think it is.
Okay.
But
Oh.
I mean, there's all
It
that.
depends on what
There's all
your
that
port of
international.
origin is too, I imagine,
Right.
and where you
Ugh,
are, how
chum the
far out you
water
are from
sounds
the
so
water,
dirty.
and
Oh,
from
they
the coast.
chum the water in this movie
I mean,
already.
the ocean is notorious for
It
not
wasn't dirty,
falling
they
in the
just-
jurisdiction.
Now,
of,
is chumming illegal if you're fishing, or is it illegal? Period.
I don't know. I don't even know if it's illegal. I think
Okay.
it's illegal, but I don't.
could
I'm
see
not,
it being illegal if you're out fishing.
I'm not a fisherman. I'm
but-
just a diver.
Yeah, you could just grab one while you're down there. You know.
I'm just curious because we keep talking about stupid decisions, and I'm like, well,
You
is
get
this
the
a
sense-
stupid decision?
No,
it's not really a stupid
it's not a
decision.
stupid
This
decision.
is normally like a thing people do that's fairly safe, right?
Yeah, and the chumming and stuff. It's like the dive operation presented as a fly by night like tourist trap dive operation, which do exist and people do die on them. Like people will go to Mexico, they'll get certified for scuba in like a day or two, and then they'll meet a guy who wants to take them into some caves, and then they die in the caves. Like groups of people have died in Mexico doing this because there's a lot of fly by night touristy dive operations operating in the world.
Yeah, and that's where I thought the conspiracy element was going to come in, because there were some kind of weird communications between the two Mexican dudes and the guy who was leading the tour, and I was like, "Oh, is
the guy leading the tour? You mean Matthew Modine?
Yeah, Matthew Modine,
in desperate need of some sunscreen.
The man looked great.
He looked like he'd spent a life on the ocean.
There were some moments where I was like, are they trying to fuck these girls over? But it turns out no.
And there's a moment where you think that the boat left them.
Yeah.
And I was actually very thrilled. That's the worst. I mean, that's the worst scenario.
That worked for me.
That worked for me. I kind of was disappointed. I was screaming. I was hoping that the boat had left them. That would have been very exciting for the movie.
There were so many different things that they could have done to make this movie just horrifying.
Yeah.
And they just...
that's like, I mean,
that is number one.
I would
on my
totally
list.
have bought it. I'm like, yeah, you're a fly-by-night operation. You don't know these girls. You about to kill some people.
You
Just
get away with
knows
right
you're
now.
out
You just
there.
go.
Just go, and then maybe someday some more divers will just find a cage with some bones in it.
And even some drama between the crew and maybe the two guys that brought them out there. Like, just have some of that dialogue. No, we can't just leave them. We've got to save these girls. But they didn't do anything with it at all.
One of my favorite moments in the movie is, I mean, like, Kate sort of knows. I mean, Kate has scuba dived before. Lisa has no fucking clue what she's doing and is very scared. And so when they first, like, go to get on the boat, Matthew Modine is like, "You girls scuba dived before?" And they're like, "Yeah." And he just holds this great pause and he's like, "All right.
Yeah.
Well, welcome aboard."
I'm sure there's operations that run like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure he figured it out before he put her down.
We pretty much went on one of them in Panama.
It reminds me of Captain Lawrence a little bit.
He absolutely would have had it figured out when he was like, how many bars of oxygen do you have? Just check your meter. And she's like, what? What's a meter?
Talk about chumming the waters.
Yeah. No, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just they chum the waters with these two idiot girls who have no idea what they're doing.
No. I was talking about when we were in Louisiana on the boat tour, the swamp boat tour with Captain Lawrence, and we're out there on this alligator boat tour. This old fucker just has like a 5-gallon bucket full of raw chicken and is just throwing it in the water, trying to attract alligators. And
did it work?
They came for it.
Well, a little one did. The mama never came out. The big mama gator.
You never got to see a big monster down there?
Well,
No.
there were also a bunch of, what were those, fucking crows or something on that one island that he was just throwing raw chicken at? That was a bizarre experience, but it was so
were we
great.
accomplices to a crime? Was that illegal?
Perhaps. Maybe we shouldn't be speaking about this on the record.
What's the address for
he's
Captain
dead,
Lawrence?
so
in
I
the
think we're
bayou?
okay.
Oh.
R.I.P. All right, Chris, dive science.
All right. Well, first I got to circle back on what you said about swimming 47 meters, because 47 meters is 154 feet, which doesn't sound like a lot. But the issue is they're wearing scuba equipment, which is heavy.
Heavy, yeah.
And they weren't wearing fins, which I think was a smart decision by the filmmakers, because it's a lot easier to swim up in fins than not. I mean, basically, all that scuba shit's going to weigh you down. And the other thing is, like, you can't take it off. If you hold your breath and you take it off and you swim up, your lungs will explode.
Because of the bend?
No.
Like pressure or something?
So let me explain the bends. Let me explain all some of the horrible ways you can die scuba diving. The essential thing to understand, I'll do this very quickly, and I think they should have set this up at the beginning of the movie.
Thank God you drank that Mountain Dew Kickstart before we got started here.
Yeah.
You are fired up. You're ready to go. It's like you just did a line of Coke.
That Mountain Dew Kickstarter.
Mountain Dew
I'm holding
Kickstarter.
up air
Yeah,
quotes.
yeah.
It's
that's
the
what
same
we're
as
calling
Chris
it.
doing Coke. There's
So-
a free ad for Mountain Dew.
I didn't like that they seem to keep trickling out new scuba diving science related things throughout the movie. I felt like it would have been very easy for them to establish all this stuff and like either on the shore, like they're like, "Oh, are you sure? What about the bends?" And he's like, "You don't have to worry about that unless you go past, so however many meters."
Yeah,
And,
it was like the scuba equivalent of Inception. Like 2/3 of the way through the movie, they were still introducing new fucking rules.
Yeah, so why not, instead of having that shitty club scene, have a quick club scene, and then maybe she takes a quick fly-by-night
was a
scuba
shitty club
class.
scene.
Because
and then
we wouldn't
get
have heard
these
3 minutes of
facts.
Skrillex ripoff. I mean,
Right, like just a whiteboard presentation in the cabin of the boat would have been great, and
Right.
everyone would have been on the same page. I think maybe the movie capitalizes on people, on the rules being somewhat arbitrary throughout the movie. But
Ignorance and arbitrary.
so basically, the essential thing to understand about depth is that everything compresses at depth except for water. So most importantly, air compresses. So If you're on the surface, you take a breath of air. You go down 30 feet, you take a same breath of air. It feels the same to you, but you're actually breathing 3 times as many molecules of air. And that's going into your bloodstream. So the bends is basically your body eliminates oxygen better than it eliminates nitrogen. And air, as we know, is a mixture of oxygen, nitrogen. It's mostly nitrogen. That's why I get upset when I hear people refer to scuba gas as oxygen, which happens in this movie, because it's not oxygen. It's air, and there's a difference because if you sip on oxygen below 100 feet, you like instantly die because it's poisonous when you consume that much of it.
What?
Yeah.
Oxygen?
Yeah. It will give you a seizure and you will die.
So you have to be breathing nitrogen as well.
Well, that you breathe normal air
It's
in a
mix
normal
of
scuba
I
dive.
mean, it's just
If you want to go, deep and you want a
atmosphere.
special, well, let me explain the nitrogen first. So basically, your body eliminates the oxygen that's in normal air. It does not eliminate nitrogen as efficiently. So the longer you stay down and the more air you breathe, the more nitrogen accumulates in your body as dissolved gas, tiny microscopic bubbles. If your body has not used that nitrogen by the time you come up, those little bubbles become big bubbles and you get embolisms in random parts of your body. Your heart, your spine, your brain, your fingers. It could be anywhere. And that's what the bends is.
What does that mean? Embolisms. That means your like finger explodes?
No, it means you just get big bubbles in places that are supposed to be filled with fluid in your body.
What does that look like? You would just, I mean, so you
It wouldn't
said
look like
finger-
anything.
wouldn't see
I'm
anything.
fixated on the finger.
It might feel like pins and needles or something, and you realize like you just it doesn't feel right.
You might visibly see some inflammation in the area from blood flow restriction and things like that, but there's not like you're not going to see like weird bubbles start to pop out of your skin or
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, I mean, so the effects of the bends can range from mild discomfort to death, and it's very unpredictable once you get it.
So basically what you're telling me is I'm full of shit. I could not have swam to the surface that quickly in that situation, and the movie was basically fairly accurate in that.
No,
No.
you could have swam.
Could have swum.
What you would not.
Swinded.
Swim.
You would want to go to the surface, but the problem is they had all the weight on them. They had all the weight and they didn't have fins, so it would have been difficult. But it didn't. That never became an issue in the movie, though. You know, the movie never said, "Oh, you can't come up because you're overweighted."
It's true.
They did have the ballast thing on
Right.
their equipment.
You don't want to use that to ascend because you could get a runaway ascent and shoot to the surface way too fast, and that's a good way to get the bends. If you ascend at like 1 foot per minute, 1 foot per second, and you haven't been down too long, you should be safe. But the problem is at 47 meters, you can only stay down for about 5 minutes before you incur a decompression obligation, where you have to stop halfway up and chill for a while.
Okay.
So 47 meters is deep enough to get the bends and embolisms and all this fucking horrifying horse shit you've just told
If you
us
stay
about.
down for more than 5 minutes, yes. But here's the problem with the movie. It is much better.
Just one.
It is much. This is the problem with the movie. Yeah, I mean, it's the most glaring thing from a diving perspective. It is always better to risk the bends or risk a shark attack or risk anything rather than risk an out of air emergency at 47 meters. It's better to be fucked up floating on the surface unconscious than in a cage with no air.
If you want to live, we should specify.
If you want to live. There is no conceivable scenario where any dive operator or any diver would choose to stay at depth with an empty tank. It wouldn't happen.
Now, what if, and this is, what if there were sharks with frickin' laser beams on their head?
Important question. I'm glad Gregory raised this, actually, because I was wondering about the same thing myself.
Would you stay in the cage?
What if there were avalanche sharks?
Well, that's the thing. That's the movie monster sharks are a good deterrent to leaving the cage and going towards the surface. I didn't think they played it up as much as I was expecting, though.
No, not really.
The sharks, yeah.
I mean, the sharks were their main reason for staying down there, but they didn't mention it nearly. They didn't mention nearly enough to make it actually feel like a scary, constant threat to me.
No. And really, I knew the sharks were menacing because we were in a horror movie, but other than that, like, we don't see the sharks kill anybody for a long time into this movie.
Yeah.
Also, can a shark actually bite through steel bars? Because I thought that was ridiculous.
It pushes the bars apart with its nose,
but it also
and it's like-
chomps on them,
like,
and
what?
you see it like bite through the bars.
I
which
didn't.
was
I
like,
don't
huh?
remember that, but I do remember seeing because everything on that boat was falling apart. There were some stress fractures in the steel that got bent further out by the shark hitting it.
Yeah, we have some of those in the spoiler room.
Yeah. That's because you guys are
thanks,
not
Greg.
doing things to code. I told you I had to renovate that room in my house, and I'd be back for the spoiler room. Now you got like a 47-inch plasma TV. Where did you even get that?
Now you're fucking sitting here talking to us instead of getting down the spoiler room and doing your goddamn job.
I'll work on it while we get down there later.
Please.
As long as you can talk and work at the same time, that's fine. I'm fine. We can get you
I'll use one of my
a
quiet
lob that
hammers.
you can carry around with you, like hammer away.
Speaking of talking,
Let's do some more.
it's interesting.
There's no tangent that Chris can't come up with a segue to get us back on
Well,
track.
speaking of talking, it's interesting and unusual but makes total sense because it's a movie. That our heroes are wearing full face mask diving equipment with intercoms built into them.
Yeah, how common is that?
Extremely uncommon.
I figured as much. That was one of my number one burning questions for you. Like, have you ever even encountered one?
I actually texted him to ask him that, like, as soon as they went
and
underwater.
this is not an upscale operation.
No.
Like, the boat's pretty shitty.
You would fix your winch before you invested in that.
Matthew.
And your backup winch.
Taylor has other plans for his boat.
And also the digital pressure gauge was very movie. That's a movie piece of equipment. But these aren't things that take away from the movie. I mean, yeah, I'd rather look at that number and say, oh shit, she's got 30 bar than see a needle.
Why
and
is
have to try
bar
to read
singular?
it.
Is that like an actual measurement? I thought it was like.
It's the metric unit of measurement for pressure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
I mean,
I'm learning a lot.
Is that
I love
is bar
this.
short for barometric? Or
I don't know.
That would
They
make
just call it
sense.
bar.
I
Okay.
was actually hoping that when they went down there, it was going to be dialogue free for the whole time. Because I was
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
they
God.
won't be able to talk
It
to
might
each
as well
other.
have been. They don't talk about much of anything
That's
of
the
import.
thing. That was the thing, because I was like, well, obviously they want to talk. It's a movie. It would be a heavy lift for this movie to try
Yeah.
to get through the whole movie with them just making hand signals or whatever, or writing on a slate or whatever.
The Descent did it though.
Did they?
It's possible. Yeah, there's not a lot of dialogue once shit gets real in
Well,
that
the
movie.
thing is, there's not a lot of dialogue that's really important.
It's just like, this isn't fun.
Yeah, it's like,
Why do you like to have so much
oh my
fun?
god, what are we gonna? And they just scream a lot, and
That was something somebody else brought up that I was talking to about this movie. Was we have Mandy Moore, who is an excellent actor and actually does a solid performance in the movie aside from the script material she had to work with. And then they had Claire Holt. She's not in a ton of stuff, but she's quote unquote hot. And,
Yeah, sure.
It could
Hot
have
is in like a
physically
rising star or
attractive,
physically attractive.
just physically
Okay.
attractive.
Okay.
Yeah, and
I've never heard of her.
It seemed like they had to bring like a secondary something pretty to look at.
I felt the same thing. We didn't need two characters here.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't really add anything or detract anything to or from each other this entire film.
So it felt like it was just
no
we
lesson is learned.
We need a piece of meat for people to leer at to
Some more
draw them
chum.
in. Yeah, exactly. Chum the water for the shark men.
for the
I don't
pervs.
know. It makes sense if you don't think about it. You're like, yeah, we want two divers so they can talk to each other and strategize and whatever.
Yeah, but it's the choice of actor.
I would
makes
rather
it-
see. It would be a much more interesting movie if they had made like that Robert Redford movie where he's piloting the sailboat by himself and he's not saying anything and he's just by himself trying to get out of the situation.
Yeah, fuck, what's that called?
It's called All Is Lost.
All is lost. Yeah.
I haven't seen it actually.
Oh.
But
And yet you still have a passion for it.
you can make a more interesting decision. But anyway, the hilarious thing, I got to the 55-minute point of this movie before I realized that neither of the divers are wearing anything on their ears that would allow them to hear the intercom.
Wow.
Their ears are
So it's like the
completely
Avengers.
uncovered.
We can clearly see the mics, but no earpieces.
yeah, we can see the mics. No headphones, no earpieces, nothing.
Huh.
So that was
I got to the 89-minute
Yeah.
mark of this movie without realizing that.
Good call. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah.
Now you've completely ruined the movie for me, and I hate it now. So thanks.
yeah.
All right, I have a list of dive questions to ask you.
You have
Oh,
two
I
things
can't
to say
wait.
about this.
I can't wait. I'm so glad. Again, I didn't want to come on here like Neil deGrasse Tyson and nitpick from a scientific point of view, but I'm happy to
You
answer
can't
questions.
do that with movies for the most part. It gets boring.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can get water in your mask?
Yeah.
How do you get it out?
You get it out by pressing the mask to the top of your head, opening up the bottom, and exhaling air because the air will displace the water and force the water out through the
I think
bottom
some
of the
have
mask.
fancy buttons on the bottom
Okay.
too.
Well, they're wearing full face masks, so they're adding air to the mask with their regulator But yeah, usually
did they do that in the movie?
Yeah,
Okay.
but usually you just have a mask that covers your nose and your eyes, so you would just exhale through your nose.
I was curious because when they first dropped and they pass out, like she has water in her mask and she wakes up, and I was like,
and
oh,
I
wait,
did
how
like
would
that.
work?
The first thing that went through my head, I'm like, if you are in a cage and you fall to 47 meters, the first thing that's going to happen is your eardrums are going to explode. And
That was my other question is, so they pass out, like what would happen to them if they didn't equalize on that like really steep sudden drop down?
their eardrums would become perforated. They would experience vertigo and excruciating pain.
Back up a fucking second. What the fuck does their eardrums would become perforated mean? Because that sounds
It
horrifying.
means their eardrum
Sounds like
would tear.
exactly what you think.
Sounds like a hole in your eardrum.
It means their eardrum would tear because there would be too much of a pressure imbalance between the outside and the inside.
But then what does that mean in practical terms? Like you,
probably be.
In practical terms, it doesn't
Hearing
mean as much as you
loss?
think. Basically, what happens is it's painful, and the middle ear floods with water, and it can create vertigo. I think just temporarily, and then your hearing is impaired, but you can still hear. So, because I was wondering about that, I was like, would they even be able to hear anything if their eardrums were perforated? So, Mandy Moore's eardrums should have been shot, and she should have been in a world of hurt. And they did show some blood, like on her nose. So I was like, okay, that's good enough for me. Claire Holt, I'm willing to believe that she was somehow able to equalize on the whole way down in the free fall.
Okay, another question. Can you take your mask off and put it back on underwater like
Absolutely.
Kate does at some point?
Yep, absolutely. It's part of your training.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. All right. And then you just blow the water out like you told us about a second ago.
Yep. Pinch it to your forehead, blow out through your nose.
Wow. How long does a standard air tank last?
Oh, that is a question that should
89
not be.
minutes.
That's one of the nitpicky things, because in real life, their air would have run out super quick at that depth. It depends on what depth you're at. If you're at the surface, it's going to run out. Oh, I don't know. I mean, because again, everything compresses. So at 100 feet, you're drinking a lot more air out of that tank with one breath than you are at the surface.
So can you take a shallower breath at depth?
No, it
Okay.
feels the same. I
Okay.
mean, maybe you could. I haven't heard that before,
Okay.
though. It's an interesting question.
I found it funny that at one point they say that Lisa has 20 minutes worth of air left and Kate has like 3 or something.
They play real fast and loose. with that.
and then
Why would they have differing amounts?
Yeah.
I wrote down,
I
if you
assume
want to
maybe
save
because
air,
Lisa
stop
passed out for a
making each
while?
other laugh so much.
Yeah, that's the thing. Lisa passed out for a while, and
Would that,
I mean, the
is
more
that a reasonable reason
yeah,
for that to happen?
the more you exert yourself, the more air you're going to use. The more anxious you are, the more air
So
you're
if they're
going
in
to
there
use.
like
Exactly.
like they are.
Yeah.
at
But that's
many
the thing.
points.
That's where the bad diving science and the bad filmmaking intersect, because it's like, okay, this is a really interesting dilemma that you're stuck at 47 meters down. We'll assume you can't get to the surface. Your air's running out. There's a ticking clock, lots of suspense. But they don't establish how the air's ticking down well enough.
Yeah, because to be fair, as you and I, Chris, discussed before we did the cast, like I don't by any means like want to call this movie out for having like bad science, because I think that's just dumb. Does it adhere to the rules of its own reality well enough? Not really.
But how many movies do? Like, okay, we watched Heathers a couple of weekends ago, and like
Great
it reminded me of a great, not great, but a common trope in action movies where there's a ticking time bomb and it's got the LED clock, and it's like 5 minutes passes and you look back and only like 3 seconds have
Right.
passed on the clock, and like even Heathers does that,
Right.
and like but it works because you don't really care that much. You know the bomb is going to get dismantled.
That's just manipulation for suspense's sake. It's the same thing as like, when Indiana Jones is sliding under the door and you see that door almost close, like where it's not even possible that a human being
Or
could
the
get
trash
under it, and then he
compactor in
manages
Star
to slide
Wars,
under it.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a different thing, I think, when you tell me that one person has 20 minutes worth of air and the other person has, I forget how many, 3 minutes worth of air. And then it's just kind of like thrown to the wind why that's, why they both end up lasting for much longer.
Yeah, they just make
than
everything
that.
arbitrary, and you like even when they're showing her her meter, how much oxygen or how much air she has left.
Thank you.
It's it goes from 40 to, or I'm sorry, from what was it, 70 down to 30 instantly.
Yeah.
And then that 30 to like 1
Right.
took forever.
Right. And I mean, you can have varying rates of air consumption, but like, you know, what
Those
are you
pretty big
doing?
leaps, yeah.
Are you like the one when Claire Holt leaves the cage and swims into the open ocean and swims back? She should have used up all her air doing that. That's exertion, especially because she doesn't have fins.
Yeah.
But so I was just wondering. I mean, it didn't seem like that works any way you cut it.
It didn't work for me, and I know very little about diving.
Yeah.
It didn't work for me either. I still felt some suspense, but that did pull me out of the experience a little bit. Just realizing, like, yeah, this movie isn't really playing by its own rules. I want to see how they're going to get out of this. I don't really care what's keeping them in peril at this point, though. I just want to see them
getting out of this later.
Yeah, we can. We're going to have to.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a simple movie, which is actually kind of refreshing. You know, like I said, it's an easy watch. It's a premise that really they stick to, and I'd rather have that than some of these other Netflix movies where there's like 7 subplots and they go to the library and they have to try to solve a mystery that I don't care about.
You know, a subplot would have been nice.
It's everyone.
Okay.
All of a single subplot.
One single subplot would have been nice.
I was okay with that one.
I would have been interested in, you know,
I wanted to see some boat drama.
yeah, maybe we could have seen some boat drama.
Because that had to be stressful for
You
everybody
wanted to
up
see
there.
Matthew Modine.
I liked
He's a great
that we
actor.
didn't go up there and see what's happening on the boat. I mean, it made it more stressful, like knowing, like, well, are they bad guys? Are they gaslighting these women? Did they drive off or what?
Yeah.
We don't know. Like, that makes it more
it would have
more
ruined the
stressful.
entire movie to
Because
have
I did
cutaways
that
to the
mental
boat.
math. I was like, wait, what if there was more of that? Because what's happening down here is so uncomplicated. It wouldn't have worked for me.
So depending on how they did it,
Your idea would have ruined the
my
entire
idea
movie.
would have ruined the entire movie. That was the only thing that would have made it bad.
Wait, make that movie that's all above water.
Just with accidentally
And like,
dropping women
fuck,
into
are
the
they
ocean.
dead or what? Like, we could be screwed. The Coast Guard's coming.
But I mean,
hell
they
yeah.
could leave it mysterious still. Like have the 2 guys just being like, we should go. Like we should just fucking leave these girls down there and get out of here. And then cut. Don't like show them doing one thing or the other, or have it like see a speedboat pull up and buzz the guys out of there's 2 guests or something away. I mean, there are ways to do it, but
I'm on Team Steve. I did have that idea. I was like, yeah, I want to see some boat drama. That'd be interesting. It would because I like that it's just you stay with these girls. You're in the shit with them.
I agree. I
For the
agree with
enjoyment.
I
that.
never felt like I was in the shit with them though. That's
Well,
that.
yeah,
Well, that's on you.
No, that's on the filmmakers. How dare you?
Kidding.
Woman hater.
It felt like it would have been very claustrophobic to be those women or to be in that cage, yet somehow be surrounded by this open expanse. And I never once felt stuck.
I was just wondering why they didn't do a cave diving movie. Because in the cave dive, you get stuck, you're really fucking stuck.
That would be much more claustrophobic.
That's The Descent, like I said earlier.
Maybe they didn't want to be too close to the descent.
Yeah. Well, and The Descent's not a perfect film by any means, nor is any film by that director, as we've learned from the Hellboy reviews. I didn't feel stuck either. I feel like the movie was trying to make me feel stuck in vain at times. There were times when it worked for me, but there's one scene, maybe I missed something. But there's a scene where, and I don't even remember who was left in the cage at this point, if it was... I almost said Claire. There's no Claire in this movie.
Claire Holt
Claire
is
is
the
the
actress.
actress.
Yeah. It's not her. It's our
Mandy Moore.
protagonist,
Mandy Moore.
Mandy Moore.
Lisa.
Lisa, yes. Where like an air tank comes down and she's trying to catch it with this harpoon. And I'm like, we can clearly see the lock on the door. Why did you not just open the
Because
door,
she was
run up and
pinned
grab
under the
it?
cage.
Oh, was
Oh,
she?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
then that's what I missed.
Yep.
Yeah.
But then she eventually does unlatch the lock and go out and get it. What changed?
There's
that's
a lot. You were not
we
paying
need to-
attention.
you missed something between what
missed
happened and
several
where
things.
we are. So we'll have to wait for the spoiler room for what you're talking about.
Okay.
But the harpoon scene was hilarious to me because she's reaching out for the fucking harpoon gun and she's grabbing it by the barrel and she catches the trigger on
Yeah.
like a bolt on the edge of the
I like
gas
that.
Yeah.
and fires the harpoon into her own hand,
Love
which was
it.
just like
You
the
just
stupidest.
knew it was going to happen, though, even as dumb as it is.
It's like,
I like
Come
that
on.
a lot. I like that.
you liked it?
Yeah, I mean, it was just like, oh, that
It was good suspense.
I felt the pain.
until it happened, and then I was like, oh.
But that's such an
nothing
an
happened.
easy thing to avoid. Like, just turn it slightly so the trigger doesn't get caught on the fucking bolt.
she
or
was
didn't
using
know.
her last little stretching that she had
she-
available.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
she was,
yeah.
that
That
was
was fine.
stupid.
That was fine.
Stupid.
All right. Well, I will admit I checked out at that point. We're like over an hour into the movie at that point, I think. And I was just like, we've been down here for a while.
And that's the thing. They are down there for so long.
An hour is the point at which you check out of most of these movies.
After a certain amount of time, I became a little disengaged too, just because, again, the main driving tension in this movie is the air supply. And after a certain point, it becomes clear that they're kind of just making up the rules of the air supply as they go along.
Yeah.
And there's no way. I mean, if I had hooked up one of my tanks and was breathing off it from the time they got into the water, I would have run out of air at the surface probably before the movie was over.
Yeah,
you know,
like,
much less being at 150 feet. So it's like, and I don't think you have to be
bad.
a diver to know that they're down there for a extremely long period of time. You know?
The tension was they're going to run out of air, but then they never run out of air. And it never feels like they're going to run the risk of running out of air.
And
this
also,
movie does a great job
Yeah.
of like building the stakes and then gradually pulling the stakes away. And I think that's about where I started to get kind of bored and checked out.
There's a lot of goalpost shifting. For
No,
sure.
that's true because otherwise they would just die very quickly.
Yeah, but like when they get down to
5-minute long
3%,
movie.
I'm like, all right, well, it's been 15 minutes. Like, how the fuck are you still alive? Like, why do I even care at this point?
They compressed so quickly that they just died of shock on the way down. Movie's over. Let's go home.
It was a Jacob's Ladder scenario, the whole thing.
Well, to talk about it anymore, I think we gotta go to the spoiler room.
Let's do this.
Yeah, actually.
I can
All right.
complain about your
Let's
electrical
review
some
it.
more.
Yeah. So,
Chris, what do you think? As the person who picked this film, subjected us to it.
yeah, I'm actually gonna give it a Q it, which isn't to say it's a great film. I think it's entertaining. I think it's well paced. I thought it was interesting, even though it wasn't accurate from a diving perspective as a diver. And you know, you could do worse. It's an entertaining watch. Worst ways to spend your time on Netflix for sure.
I'm surprised because most of the movies you give Q it to are great movies.
Wow.
So
Greg, what would you give it, smartass?
I would give it a Q it too, actually, because it's fairly easy to watch. You can walk away because you know when you come back in 10 minutes, they're still underwater, and so you're not going to miss a whole lot aside from angry conversations or some laughing, and that's about it. So it's easy enough that you could keep it on in the background, or you could even focus on it if you were so inclined for some reason. But yeah, absolutely a Q it.
You know what movie I need to see that I haven't seen, and it probably isn't as interesting as I hope? It has a 33% on Rotten Tomatoes. The Deep, 1997 or 1977 thriller.
I know the box art for that.
It's based on a book by Peter Benchley, who wrote Jaws, and it's about scuba divers who like discover like drug dealer treasure or something like that.
Oh, that's awesome.
So,
I'm into that.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I want that book more than I want to see that movie, though.
Yeah, I should watch that one. Patrick, would you view it, Q it, or screw it? 47 meters down.
I was in the Q territory until the twist occurred. I thought it was fun. I thought it was suspenseful. I was having a good time despite the the inconsistencies that I've pointed out already. The twist really pissed me off, and I thought it robbed the lead character of a lot of her agency and her character arc, but we'll talk about that more in the spoiler room. So I'm going to go screw it as my final review.
Ooh. Steven.
Solid Q it. I mean, there's a lot wrong with this movie, but it's short, it's briskly paced. Not quite enough for me because apparently I missed some shit that you guys gave me some shit about. But it's it's a well shot movie. It's decently acted for how thin the characters and the stakes are. I'm not really scared of sharks. Thankfully, we don't see a whole lot of the sharks in this movie. When we do, it's a little bit embarrassing. But I there were moments where I was on the edge of my seat. I'll say that. It worked well as a little thriller without many stakes. Cue it. If you're into sharks, you might dig it.
I looked up a article that was in a scuba diving magazine about this film, and they said, and they were looking at it from a severe like scuba diving nitpicking the science,
A Neil deGrasse
perspective.
Tyson sort
Right.
of thing, yeah.
They said they give it 2 thumbs up, which if you're a diver means let's get out of here.
That's cute. I love it.
All right, well, we're going to go down to the spoiler room, so if you want to discover the secrets of 47 Meters Down for yourself, turn us off and go watch Netflix. Otherwise, stick around for a few seconds, and we'll be back, and we'll spoil everything.
Has anybody seen Hellboy yet?
fuck
No,
wrong?
Okay.
one of my good buddies
curious.
from work is going to see it, or two of them are going to see it tonight.
On purpose.
Neither of them has any interest in Hellboy, so I just told them, like, be warned. Apparently, it's a lot of exposition dumps, but they're not movie people at all. Like, they just don't watch movies. So I'm curious to hear what they'll say.
Guys, we should go see Hellboy right after this episode.
No, I
Nope,
want to.
we should not.
That would be a trip.
All right, welcome back. We are submerged in the spoiler room.
Greg's hard at work.
Greg's hard at work fixing the pipes while we're talking. I appreciate you coming down to give it some attention.
He's fixing our oxygen tanks.
Yeah, well, this is pure oxygen. There is still no smoking in here. I see the ashtray you guys set up.
So
yeah,
if you would,
sorry, air
I mean,
tanks.
also, if you would get rid of the asbestos, we wouldn't have to worry about anything.
The asbestos is there to prevent fires. Just don't move it, and it's fine.
All right.
So minor scuba facts. If you want to stay down longer without accumulating that nitrogen in your blood, you can breathe in enriched air mixture, which has more oxygen percentage in it. The problem is, like I said, if you go too deep breathing that, then you have seizures and die. If you want to go super deep, then you start breathing different gases like helium. You'll breathe like nitrogen, oxygen, and helium, so that some of that nitrogen is replaced with helium. Or I think they might use, I'm not going to say. Helium for sure is one of the gases.
Well, I'm getting nitrogen narcosis just listening to this, so can we talk about that?
All
Because
right,
that's
so-
kind of our relevant point here.
So the point of this movie where I threw my fucking hands in the air and
You put both thumbs up.
all right,
Did you scream? Were you screaming?
I want to know what you guys thought of this moment, and I'm gonna set up what happens. There's some point where they're almost out of air, and the dive boat just fucking drops 2 tanks next to their cage, and the guy on the radio is like, "I'm sending down 2 full tanks for you. There's a reason I didn't do this before. Breathing another cylinder of air at that depth will increase your chance of nitrogen narcosis, which he describes will make you act like a loon and lose your goddamn mind."
Well, first of all, I thought I was in like BioShock or something. I just felt like a video game, having like a narrator sort of like philosophize and explain things to me. But also, like, I felt the same way about that as I felt about the Benz thing. It's like, I would rather hallucinate and survive than die of like oxygen deprivation at the bottom of the ocean.
Yes.
It pissed me off. I was screaming.
The little I knew about nitrogen narcosis was that it would not be as bad as he was describing. And it's reversible from what I understand, like almost immediately as soon as you start coming out
Yeah,
from
I've been
the
narked
ocean.
before. It's fine.
It's
Is it fun though?
it was described to me as being a
Did
little
you get some
drunk.
great
Yeah,
pictures
it's-
for Instagram?
It's like you are a little drunk, and it happens when you go past 100 feet drinking air. And that's the thing; it doesn't, to my knowledge, it doesn't depend on how much air you breathe, just the depth at which you're breathing. So
Getting fucked up on air.
they would have gotten nitrogen narcosis as very soon after their cage crashed. It's like having a few beers. Like one time I was chasing a manta ray, and then I looked at my computer and it was like, "You're at 129 feet," and I was like, "That's pretty deep," and that explains why this cylinder on my buddy's back, like, it feels like I've had a couple beers. I'm gonna go up, above 100
Did we have
feet,
the same acid trip?
and I'm all better.
Wait,
that was the
was there
mushrooms when
actually
you
a
guys
manta
jumped out
ray?
of the window.
Yes. Yeah, you do not hallucinate on nitrogen. So
Would you hallucinate an entire escape from your perilous situation at 47 meters deep,
no, you would not.
including a shark almost biting off your fucking leg?
No, you would not.
As Lisa does in this film.
No, you would not.
I was imagining that more as a dream, like between stress and pain and being in shock, pinned under this thing, plus the nitrogen narcosis, just putting her into her body finally found a way to just kind of shut her down, and I imagined it as just kind of a dream rather than a hallucination. Either way, it was fucking stupid.
In fact,
It was a, as I said earlier, a Jacob's Ladder scenario.
I haven't seen
kinda
Jacob's
spoiled it.
Ladder, so I can't.
But you know what that is, at least?
I don't.
It's basically, it was all a dream. Like, that's
Dallas.
Yeah.
They pulled it Dallas.
Yes. Okay, fine. If we want to go even more culturally relevant, we can go back to Dallas.
But like Kate, she even hallucinates her dreams or whatever. Kate getting caught by a shark
No.
and then somehow escaping.
No, it's not Kate.
So Kate got eaten before she hallucinated anything. Kate got snatched up by a shark.
Okay, right.
That-
yes.
that
Okay,
happened.
sorry. You're right. Yeah. She hallucinates that Kate calls her on the radio and says, "I managed to escape. The sharks are circling around me," which when that happened, I was just like, what? And then she catches up with Kate, gets her back to the surface, gets her on the boat. The shark attacks at the last minute. It's like some fucking 3-headed shark attack fucking shit. And then she realizes that she's been nitrogen narcosising.
She doesn't even notice because the Red Coast Guard shows up.
She's just smiling.
whatever. We realize that she's been nitrogen narcosising.
But that dream sequence did not bother me, even though it's not, realistic. That's a thing where I'm like, okay, you know what? Actually, that's okay. I'm kind of okay with that. And that last shot, when you're like, she's kind of been saved, and it's like, oh wait, no, she's just narked, and then it goes back, and she's just sitting in the cage all by herself. I was like, great, end the movie, kill her, leave her down there.
That would have been better.
Yeah,
I'm fine with one. I'm fine with like one of them, our protagonist coming out like missing a fucking leg because of the shark, and like that's the price you pay for the stupid decision you made, and the movie there. That works for me too.
I would have much preferred her losing the leg and having been the one that saved her and her sister to them stripping that entire heroic moment from the character, because all they did throughout the movie was follow directions of men and not follow their instincts. They were basically told to don't do what you think is right, do what we're telling you the entire movie.
Right.
And it drove me nuts. And then that happened, and I wanted to throw
she's the damsel in distress on the railroad
TV.
Tracks at the end of the movie.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
It was garbage. Absolute garbage. It pissed me off.
Yes.
It didn't piss me off because I was kind of glad it was over. Upon reflection, piecing it all together and the toxic masculinity of this movie, and it's deeply upsetting. I didn't mention this earlier. Like, there's literally a line where, like, before they go out to drink, our protagonist asks if she's like, I don't really want to go out, but does my ass at least look good in this? I couldn't believe.
There's a lot of that superficial shit.
I mean, this was produced by the Weinsteins.
It was.
Okay. But I thought I saw Weinstein in the opening credits. I wasn't sure. But like at the beginning when Mandy Moore's character first gets out of the pool, Kate goes, "Nice ass, by the way." Come on. Like, none of this is necessary. Just there was a lot of that superficial crap throughout the movie.
You'd think by now, by the time a screenwriter gets to the part where there's a dream sequence or a hallucination, they would stop and be like, "Wait a minute, don't these always piss me off every time I watch a movie? Why are we still? It's 2019. Why are we still having this problem?"
It pissed me off because it made. Again, you talk about suspending your disbelief and surrendering to, a movie's take on reality, science, whatever. But I mean, even with my limited knowledge of nitrogen narcosis, I was like, there's no way that she would have hallucinated this entire insane fucking ending. So that was one layer that pissed me off. The second layer that pissed me off is what Greg already said, which is that it sets up this fairly heroic, thrilling, gripping kind of ending, and then literally just strips it all away from that character to have her literally rescued by, I think, exclusively men from the Coast Guard.
Yep. Mm-hmm. She fucking pokes a shark's eye out in her fantasy.
It's a good arc
which
for
is
her.
Stupid, but
it's
kind of
like
dope.
I can imagine having that dream, even not being in narcosis, right? But like, it doesn't make sense narratively to show us that and then take it away from us.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
that's my problem.
Especially since everything in the movie up to that point had been our witnessing of what was actually happening.
Yeah.
And then they suddenly throw us into this fantasy world that removes us from the reality of their situation.
Which
it didn't all tie together. I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, my third problem with it is it feels like it's a twist just for the sake of a twist. It's like,
I agree.
Oh, we gotta give him something.
They probably had divers paid for, and they're like, we got to use them for something.
Maybe. Also, this is one thing we haven't talked about. There's a faulty winch. The winch breaks, and then the replacement winch is also shitty. Like, we didn't even talk about this. There's a replacement winch. There's a replacement winch that starts to lift them up, and then that cable breaks.
We get like I said earlier, like, it's clearly not a very professional organization or operation. Whatever. It's bad screenwriting. That's all it is. Lazy screenwriting. There's nothing more to read into it than that.
Oh, I didn't think there was anything to read into
filled
it.
With
I just
it's
thought it was
absurd.
ridiculous.
It's totally ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, this feels like a first draft. Feels like a first draft, like, I've got a list of 10 diving facts,
Why
and
did
I've
you
got
wait
this
so long
scenario.
to call the Coast Guard in the first place?
I don't know when they called.
I think they called them immediately, but I assume it takes them some time.
Well, he said we just called the Coast Guard. It'll be an hour before they can get out here.
Oh,
wow.
you're right. He does use the word just too.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
you're right.
they thought it was under control.
They thought they were
and
murderers.
yeah, you don't want the Coast Guard to know what you've been doing.
Because they could have covered this up pretty easily.
They, as far as I'm concerned, they should have just left.
Yeah,
Like any shady fly-by-night bullshit place, after their boat breaks and they are responsible for the deaths of one of the women and one of their crew members, at that point you go, you know what, we're done.
Yeah.
Bye.
so that's your movie. I don't know if there's anything else to say about it.
I've said enough.
What are we watching next? Tell us, Daddy.
Yeah, I don't even remember where we are in the alphabet. Don't call him Daddy.
We're in the seas.
Why isn't he allowed to call Daddy
Much
Chris
like
Daddy?
much like Mandy Moore and
It's a hashtag now. It's a meme.
much like Mandy Moore and Claire Holt, we are deep in the seas.
Wow.
Okay.
Good job.
That's pretty
All
good,
right.
actually.
I like it.
We are deep in the
I'm
seas,
mad, but I
and
like it.
next time we are watching Creep, which
Oh,
Oh,
God.
Patrick's favorite. I've never seen it,
is
but
this
I'm curious.
is this a Radiohead biopic?
That's two Radiohead
I think
references
I
in
know
one
the
episode,
movie,
folks.
but I don't know
Count
that I've
'em.
seen it. Creep.
It's got Jay or Mark Duplass.
Mark Duplass, yeah.
It's mumblecore, right?
It's mumble horror.
Oh, can't wait!
Mumble horror.
Can't wait for some little mumble horror.
And then after that, we'll get to watch Creep 2.
Creep too. Yep.
We might as well do a double feature. What
Well,
do we think? I mean, every time I say that, I end up regretting it and making an excuse for why I can't fit both movies in. So I'm not going to say that now.
We'll see.
We'll think about it.
I mean,
We'll
I'll
think
watch them,
We'll think about it.
but don't let me talk about them.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us on that deep dive of 47 meters down.
I feel like our dive was as deep as that movie, which is
It
not
was
very.
probably slightly longer than the
Pretty
movie.
deep. We went like 49, 50 meters down.
I feel just about as out of air as those characters.
Yeah, I got like 2 bar left.
I am experiencing nitrogen narcosis right now. I'm not going to remember any of this.
I'll tell you
I'm
guys some
bloated
more
in the
fun
sun,
facts about
so-
bar later. Let's go to the bar later after this.
Bar at the bar.
All right.
bar.
Well, that's it for every horror movie on Netflix. As always, if you can't wait for us to put out our next episode, you can find us online: Facebook, Twitter, Insta-fucking-gram.
What if they troll us?
We might troll them back.
Okay.
And
What
Tell you how
what
nice
if
your stuff
Gregory
is.
trolls us?
we'll
We will troll him back.
I'll
There's
ignore
no
him.
how
might.
nice my things are. That's all that'll happen.
I'll ignore
Thank
him.
you, Chris.
All right. Well, yeah. So we'll see you all next time. And
Thanks for having me.
yeah, thanks for coming. Always a pleasure. For every horror movie on Netflix, I'm Chris.
I'm Patrick.
I'm Steven.
And I'm Captain Taylor of the ship that killed 2 women.
That's Gregory.
Gregory, yeah, sorry, I was wrong. I was in
All
the
right.
movie.
Have a great week, everybody.